This is the Collecting Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Purse, here with your co-host, Bill Hamill.
I'm somewhat more comfortable collecting real estate than I am collecting other stuff.
This is the Collecting Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Purse, here with your co-host, Bill Hamill. Today we interviewed Tim Vitale from Upside Capital. Bill, what'd you think?
I'm laughing. Tim, he's one of our top guests for sure. He just blew my mind. We all network differently. I think anybody in this space who listens to us or is part of any of the groups that we're involved in understand the importance of networking. Everyone has their own style, but boy, he's got it figured out.
Yeah, that was a good one. I could have talked with Tim for hours there. I'd never had a long conversation with him like that and could have just kept asking him questions. I think the answer to the first final question could easily be the title of every episode, because that's usually what the person thinks about, what their skill set is, what their bucket is, as we've said before. And for Tim, it's networking. And he seems like an absolute expert in networking. If he had told me that you closed 9 large commercial multifamily deals without any direct-to-seller campaign, I'd be confused.
No, and that's it. And I value that so much too. I'm not looking to underwrite 100 deals a year like some people say that you have to, or 80 deals to get one. No, there's a massive value in attracting. A lot of people talk about attracting money, but I've been thinking about that over the last month or two. Attracting deals has that massive value, and he has that figured out as well.
Tim Vitale from Upside Capital, thank you for being here today. Excited to hear more about your story. So let's get right into it. Tell us how you got into real estate investing.
Yeah, and thanks for having me, Stephen, Bill. Always a pleasure hanging out with you guys. Tim Vitale. I'm from Connecticut. I currently live in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I got into real estate because I got promoted at my W-2 job. And it seems a little counterintuitive, right? But I like to start out with that kind of like of a bang, just like, what the hell's wrong with you? But when I was 28 years old, I got promoted to assistant vice president of a Fortune 500 insurance company based out of Greenwich, Connecticut. And I worked on Wall Street in Manhattan for a while as well. And when I got that promotion to assistant vice president of finance, I was like, oh, this is when I'm going to make it, right? Like, this is when I make, the 50%, 100% raises, like the buku bucks, right? I worked my ass off to get here. And then my boss was like, nope, I got a 3% raise. And I went from making like $99,000 a year to like 103. And I was the youngest person in my organization to ever get promoted to AVP status or any kind of VP status at that age. Because my goal in life was I wanted to make 6 figures by the time I was 30. So I accomplished that. And then the other goal was I wanted to be the CFO of my company by the time I was 35. And I was on track to do that. But then when I saw the writing on the wall, like, hey, I'm not going to keep busting my ass for this. The promotions and the raises just aren't worth it. So then that was, late 2018, early 2019, we were driving from Charlotte to Wilmington to go, just on a little trip or whatever. And my wife had put on Rich Dad, Poor Dad audiobook, and we listened to that audiobook. And it just, it's the book that starts everything for everybody, right? So you listen to that book and you just got things going off left and right, and everything just started to make sense. So I started looking into single family houses and bigger pockets, and I was doing, the meetups, and I was, doing all the things. And it took me 11 months to buy my first single family house, which was a condo. I ended up paying It's funny, this condo is actually the only single family house I had ever bought as an investment property. And it's also the reason why I got into commercial real estate. And quickly, the story with that was I paid cash for it, $76,000. I was going to be the perfect BRRRR investor, like, Brandon Turner always preaches. I was drinking that Kool-Aid, and, I did some renovations, and, 3 or 4 months later, I went to go refinance it, and I got an appraisal done, and it appraised for $76,000. I was like, wait a second, now I'm underwater on this property because of, this appraisal. And I was talking with the mortgage loan officer, and he was like, and I asked him the question of, why can't we use the income-based approach? Because it said it was worth $100,000. And I was like, that's what it should have been worth. And he said, no, only properties that are 5 units and up can be based on the income-based approach. And I was like, I got to look into that a little bit more. So that was the end of 2019, early 2020. I read David Lindel's Multifamily Millions book, and that was the catalyst book for me to stop. I cut the cord with the single family stuff, and I stopped going to those meetups, and I knew that it was going to put me back a year or two, but I knew that being in commercial real estate and apartments was where I was meant to be, with just like kind of the transfer of knowledge from my day job into how properties are analyzed and, all of that kind of good, fun stuff. But that's ultimately how I got into commercial real estate. And I just actually sold that condo. I bought it for $76,000 and I sold it for 2.5 years. 2.5 years later, I sold it for $153,000. So I 4.5 times my $19,000 that I had into that deal. And I actually turned I moved that money into a 24 unit apartment complex that I own myself now. So yeah, that's kind of the summary of why I got into real estate, how I started in single family like everybody else does. I bought one of those, thank God. And, because you always hear those horror stories of people doing it for like 5 years before they figured out they needed to go into commercial. And, I bought my first deal in August of 2021, which was a 92 unit apartment complex. And we just closed on another property, like 2 weeks ago. So we closed on 2 properties this month in November. So we're crushing it.
I can't keep up with what you guys are buying. I find it absolutely amazing, inspiring for sure. I love that story because there's 2 things that allowed you to compress so much of your learning curve time getting into commercial real estate. First of all, what a big mistake your boss made by nickel and diming you, ultimately motivating you out of that W-2. So, that was a fantastic step. And you found out very, very quickly. A lot of us, I bought small properties for years and years, and they did what they were intended to do. But I wish that I went bigger, faster. Me and Steven have talked about that many, many times. But you learned buying that one family once, instead of buying 8 or 9, you saw how that income approach was so much more valuable, being able to control the value of your real estate portfolio. And how many deals have you done over the past 2 years?
Oh boy.
Can't even say it off the top of his head. There's been so many.
It has. I think we did 9 deals this year and 4 deals last year, and I sold 1 deal so far already. So I don't know. It's enough. And this is why, remember, we're filming this. It's November 2022. I did my first deal in August 2021, which was a 92. So I went from the single family condo for 76 grand, and then we bought a 92 unit apartment complex, right? So we just went as big as we could, as fast as we could. And, there's always problems there with scaling too quickly and all this other kind of stuff. But, I was partnered with the right guys, and I learned a lot from that deal. And then we, within 3 deals, I wasn't just like a co-sponsor or co-GP. I was the one leading the deal. I was putting the deal together. I was doing the financing, the legal, the insurance, raising most of the money. Like, it just happened really, really quickly for me. But it's also because it's the success overnight. It's like 2.5, 3 years total of building the network and educating myself and building relationships and doing all of the things, so that once I did get to that first deal, I had the right network to lean on in order to go do whatever I wanted to. So yeah, we're at I'm at 700 doors now. It's around $70 million worth of assets, and we've sold 1 deal as well. So, it's hard. I don't really like using those metrics because it's always ever changing. You're buying deals, you're selling deals. You own a lot of percentages of one deal and smaller percentages of another. So it's all over the place. It's kind of an arbitrary number.
What I love about the story is the power of momentum. It took you 11 months to get that first one. You're educating yourself with the meetups, probably listening to podcasts, reading the books. And then once you start and you have that momentum going, you're closing, 9 deals this year, 2 in November? It's great. You mentioned some small challenges with scaling. I think we've all seen that. I certainly have. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, some of the challenges that we had with scaling was, really kind of organization on our side. And, I do a lot of my work with Tim Vest. He's probably my main business partner. And Tim Vest and I know, like, we speak each other's language and we know where everything is. But as we found that we hired somebody and we're bringing somebody on in order to kind of help us organize stuff, she's like, what the hell are you guys talking about? I can't find any of this stuff. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's right here. And what we really quickly learned was that for scaling, the necessary part of scaling is that we needed to have better systems and processes to keep everything consistently organized. And that was something that was one of my strong suits in my W-2 job. Like, I never had to even think about where something was. It was the same every single month. So we're building those systems and those processes. And ultimately, we're asking ourselves now the question of, if we bring in somebody new, can we hand this over to them without having us to just do it? And it's all about consistency and reorganizing stuff and just, having those things in place that make it so that if somebody leaves, the next person can come in and take over and not be like, there's no one point of contact where this person holds all the power. It's, everything's the same, systematically the same.
I wish I had a tally on the amount of times I've heard the word systems this year.
Oh God, yeah. And it's funny. It's like, I hear it too, right? I mean, you hear it, I hear it. I lived through it. But it's like we did 9 deals this year. 2 of them were in January and call it February. And then the other 7 were from August to November. So during that period of August to November, it was just go, 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 go. And we have all the information. It's just kind of all over the place. So, it's like, all right, well, I wish we had these systems and processes before we had that growth, but we also didn't have the money to hire somebody to build out those systems because we were so focused on growing. So it's, it's a chicken and the egg thing, double-edged sword that you work on, you realize, you step back, you go kind of do a couple things, you improve some processes, you find where your pain points are. And ultimately, I had a conversation with one of the guys that was in my mastermind, and he talked to me about how he completely automated his whole business. And it was simply by him walking away. And he was like, okay, well, if I'm not here, does the business run? And every time he would walk away, he would find another point of failure. And then he would fix that failure and then go back and do it again and do it again. And now he's like, man, I'm bored. I run multiple, businesses, and I don't really do anything every day. And he was like, I guess I was successful.
Oh, wow. He must have read that book, Who Not How, or you're just a fantastic mastermind coach. But the systems, because we can only do so much. So what I found out without having proper systems, which I didn't have years and years ago, you max out on what one guy or 2 or 3 people can do, period.
That's right.
You just cap out and you wonder why you haven't bought anything in a while because you're so focused in on now running those assets and the growth just ends. You mentioned Tim Vest as your main partner there. How many properties did you own commercially before you met and partnered up with Tim, or did you bump into him and then you guys started on the commercial purchases together?
We kind of started on the commercial processes together. He had done 1, maybe 2 deals before I had gotten into a deal with him, because those were kind of like already in the works. But then since then, we've just been kind of doing, if he gets a deal or I get a deal, we just talk to each other about it and do it.
Discuss the complementary skill sets you guys have. I'm sure you guys have that yin and yang going on.
Yeah. I preach this a lot, and it's a broken record statement, right? You got to find people that like the things that you hate and vice versa. And ultimately, when I first met Tim, how we met was he was part of another group or coaching group, mastermind, whatever. And it's like, oh, your name is Tim V too, and you live in Charlotte. Let's go have coffee sometime. What are the odds? So I ended up talking to him about that group. And when we first met, we ended up we were sitting outside of a Starbucks for like 4 hours. And this was like in the middle of COVID. And they were like, all right, guys, you got to leave. We're closing now. So they kicked us out. But we were just talking there. Like, I got sunburned sitting outside in the wintertime because we were just out there for so long. And we just complemented each other so well. Like I talked about all the things that I hated and that I'm not good at, and he did the same. And ultimately, something that we do in our coaching group is we talk about our puzzle piece. And everybody has a valuable puzzle piece, and you can, imagine how, one clicks into the other, and then, they make a puzzle. So the only way that you can find your picture is by telling everybody what your puzzle piece is. So there's a lot of like inward searching of like what you like to do and what value you bring to the table, but it's also identifying what value you don't bring to the table. Because once you can start identifying and labeling those things and talking about it comfortably with other people, you really start to make some solid connections and figure out, oh, this is actually somebody that we could have a successful partnership together because of these things that we just discussed. And Tim and I mean, we just kind of were transparent with each other right from the get-go, and it worked out. But Tim is really good at acquisitions and kind of seeing the vision, right? And so he goes out and he does, he makes all these relationships with the brokers, and, he's constantly driving deals, and he loves it. He loves that stuff. And cool, go ahead. Like, I love that too, but you love it way more than I do. So he'll go out, he'll do some light underwriting. And then if we get like to a point where the broker's like, I think the guy's going to accept this offer, or if we get to the point of an LOI, that's when the underwriting comes to me. And I have no emotional attachment to this deal because it's just a spreadsheet to me. And I rip apart the underwriting, right? So then we separate one of the two most difficult tasks of acquiring deals is not falling in love with the deal and negotiating it properly. So I don't fall in love with the deal, and it's purely numbers for me. And he sees the vision, and he'll tell me like what he wants to do with this property, and I put it into numbers. And then it's like, okay, I love what you're doing, or what you're thinking, but not numerically, it doesn't make sense. Like, we can't make enough money for our investors. Nobody's going to invest into this deal, et cetera, and so forth. So then we have to kind of keep each other, accountable at the end of the day. So, I'll say, okay, well, if you want to go do this, I need you to go get me this price per door. Go get it. Right. So all he has to do is focus on negotiating. And frankly, he's a better negotiator than I am. So I love telling him like, hey, man, here's what my numbers tell me where we need to be. Go get me that number. If you can get that number, we're doing the deal. If not, we're not doing the deal. Right. Like, so ultimately, I have like the kind of the Julius Caesar of yes or no on a deal based on the numbers. So we separate those two tasks because it's so hard to negotiate a deal and underwrite it at the same time, because it's so easy just to tweak the cap rate a little bit, or tweak the rents a little bit, or tweak the expenses a little bit, or like trim the CapEx budget. And when, when that stuff starts happening, I'm like, hey, nope, no. I'm not doing that. And ultimately at the end of the day, it's just, there's always the conversation of thank you for, being true to your numbers and like being true to yourself and challenging me on things that I'm telling you, because I wanted that deal to work. And I was like, I know you did. I didn't really care about it because I know that there's 4 other deals that we're negotiating on right now. We don't need that one. And I'm not going to do a bad deal. So that's really important in our partnership, because we're able to kind of split up or delegate difficult tasks and kind of, what's the word in corporate world? It's called, segregation of duties, right? We keep those things separated in order to make sure that both parties have their needs on both sides of the table to make it a successful venture.
I like the puzzle analogy for building a team. I often use that for closing a deal, all the different pieces that need to go into finally getting to that closing table. Bill and I work great together, but I think we said it before, our biggest weakness is probably being too similar. We don't have enough of that yin and yang going on. I want to take a step back and slow it down a little bit. So if you have that one, was it a condo or a single family?
It was a condo, yeah.
A condo. And you want to get into bigger commercial real estate. You said your next deal is a 92 unit. If you were explaining that to someone that doesn't know anything about commercial real estate, they probably wouldn't understand how you scaled up from a condo to owning a 92 unit apartment complex. So if you're explaining to your cousin at the Thanksgiving table, because this is still November, how would you explain to him being able to acquire an asset that size that quickly?
So I would ask more questions about what they don't understand first, right? Because I could tell you till I'm blue in the face how I did it, but there's something that you don't understand. So if I don't understand what you don't understand, then we're never going to get anywhere, and ultimately that I would say, what don't you understand about that, right? Like, do you just conceptually not understand how you have the money to do it? Or do you conceptually not understand how to get the deal? Like, what piece don't you understand.
I think
in
the
that
money's
kind of.
the one that usually stands out.
Yeah, so usually it is the money, right? But essentially, what I do is I say that I'm a person that has access to opportunity. And I solve a lot of people's problems because they have money that they don't know what to do with because they have no opportunity to invest their money elsewhere except for the stock market. So, what I do is I find these commercial assets, these apartment complexes, triple net, retail, stuff like that. And then I find them undervalued and I underwrite the deal and I figure out like what this property worth and what do we need to get it at in order to make money, right? This is a very simple concept and you can equate it to like flipping a house. I'm not, if your house is worth $100,000 when it's new, but you got to do the roof and the flooring and the kitchen and all the rehab, like you don't want to pay $80,000 to put $20,000 into it to be worth $100,000. Like, how do you make money in that scenario? And then there's like, oh, you don't. It's like, okay, now you get it. Conceptually, you have to buy it under market value. You got to add rehab. You got to do the work, the value add, and then there's going to be a spread there, a delta or spread. And that's what my investors are looking for is they love real estate. They want the depreciation. They want the cash flow. They want the appreciation. They love everything about real estate. They just don't have the time or they don't have the access to the deals or they don't have the systems or, like I operate apartments professionally and talking to cousin whoever, like you do whatever, engineering professionally. Like this is what I do professionally. So like I know what questions to ask. I know what metrics to look at. And that's how we keep our deals on track. So essentially the way that I make money and that I can buy these 92 unit properties is that I bring you an opportunity and say, hey, are you interested in doubling your money in 5 to 7 years? Yeah. All right, cool. Well, here's the asset that we can do that with. And I'm going to do all the work. And you're going to put up the money. And then at the end of it, when we go to sell it, then we'll split the equity 70-30 or 50-50 or whatever the split needs to be. I make money by providing a service to investors, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we are kind of like financial advisors and or, financial people that help people make money. What are the, financial advisors? Yeah. Or portfolio managers or whatever, right? I get paid in equity to make you money. So you don't get 100% of the deal because you're also not doing 100% of the work and putting 100% of the money in. So we split that up and I get a little piece and you get a little piece and everybody else that puts money gets a little piece. And it's better for investors because they can mitigate their risk by spreading money across a portfolio of properties, much like you would stocks. Like you're not going to put 100% of your portfolio into Amazon or Apple or whatever, or maybe you will, but it's not advised to do that. And everybody knows that concept. So you're like, okay, so at the end of the day, I'm finding deals, I'm raising money from investors that are looking to invest money into deals that love real estate, but don't know what to do or don't know how to do it successfully. And then I get paid by getting a little piece of equity and some fees along the way in order to provide you returns of your money.
Absolutely. Going back to that discussion with your cousin at the Thanksgiving table, it's not only, the money is a problem to buy a 92 unit. It's also, we all have these limiting beliefs. How can any of us buy a 92 unit complex? So yes, asking great questions and leading into how it is possible, which you just beautifully explained. And then looking at that syndication model with your passive investors. Once again, just like you and Tim, you got complementary skill sets. When we're syndicating a deal, we're just using complementary resources where you're finding that deal, you're putting it together, and then your investors are complementing the deal, being able to fund it. So sounds like you now have a group of investors, if you've done the amount of deals you and Tim have over the past 2 years. How are you finding all these deals? What's that secret sauce to that deal?
Oh, I love that question because everyone asks me that question. And then the look on their faces when I tell them is always the best. I never look for deals or money, ever. I've never asked for money. I've never looked for deals. What ends up happening is you put out good content like in these podcasts and you post regularly on social media and you talk about what you're doing and you're telling everybody how you can help them, right? Lead your life with lead with value, right? And then you're never going to be let down, right? Hold on. What's that saying? It's lead with value with no expectation of return. So you just continually putting out good stuff and telling people how you can help them. And eventually that person, when they feel comfortable enough or when they're ready, they're going to reach out to you and say, hey, Tim, I've been seeing all the stuff you've been doing. I understand what you're doing. And I got a little bit of money now, and I might be interested in investing into a deal. Can you help me? Right? Because you're putting out all this value and you're helping people and helping people and helping people. So, if you think about it like a funnel, is I'm casting a very wide net in order for the funnel to be the person that reaches out because they want to have a conversation with me about how I can help them. And it's never about how they can help me. It's always about how I can help them. And ultimately, the more you do that, the more consistently you put out good information and you go to these networking events and you meet all these different types of people, the more you help other people, the more they'll start being attracted to you. And, the more people that are attracted to you, you're going to have more meaningful conversations with people that are, wanting to invest money, or maybe they have a deal that they want to sell. But that's how it works, right? I've never looked for it. I've just attracted brokers and investors to me in order to get access to these deals because they say, hey, like, I really like this person, Tim. I feel like I know, like, and trust him because he puts so much stuff out onto the internet. So I'm going to reach out to him. So you want to be like top of mind when somebody wants to invest money or they want to sell a deal. And how do you become top of mind? Well, you show up on their social media feeds all the time.
You're telling me 9 deals this year with no direct-to-seller campaign?
None.
Wow.
Before this
None at
episode,
all.
I'm talking to Steven where I'm just like, these guys have to have this direct to seller where they're doing texts, emails, phone calls, blah, blah,
Nope.
blah. That is
Nope. We're going back and
amazing.
forth saying it's what
Okay,
everyone
so
does.
there's
Same
there's
thing.
only been one deal that we acquired through cold calling, right? But again, go back to what I had just said. I didn't do the cold calling, but I knew the guy that was doing the cold calling, and he was like, man, I think I need to do that. That's my skill set. That's how I'm going to find a deal. Tim, I found a deal. Do you want to look at it with me? Boom, deal, right? Oh, I can write the earnest money check. I can raise the money. I can sign the debt. I can help you do whatever you want to do with this deal. Just let me know what you need me to help with.
You're putting time on the calendar to be very intentional about networking, correct? That's where it comes
Absolutely.
from?
Yeah. Yeah, it's all networking, right? Now, there might be other people that are doing that work, but I personally have no off-market campaigns. I have like 3 brokers that I talk to like regularly, right? We've become friends now. Hell, we're filming it. I sent him an offer on a deal like 20 minutes ago because he reached out to me with financials from 2020 saying, hey, man, this guy might be potentially interested in selling this deal. Look what I got from him. Where do you think you could be? So I sent him an offer, right? Those are the types of deals and the types of connections that you want with brokers because they haven't had time to make an offering memorandum and shoot it out to the world. They're like working on this deal. And if they can go to the seller with an offer while they're trying to get it under contract to sell it, that helps them and it helps me. I get first crack at a deal.
Well, Stephen, fortunately, locally, we've had that one massive lead. We have one broker that just has brought us so many deals. So
just take care of that one person. That's all you need.
no.
They'll keep your pipeline full.
The importance of being on the top of a broker's list. That's where you find the deals.
Just be a closer though.
Mm.
Do what you say you're going to do and be somebody that people enjoy working with or talking to or, all of those things, right? Because at the end of the day, this broker that brought us this first deal, right? We closed on this deal. And after the closing of that deal, he said, you guys have been literally the easiest people that I've ever worked with because we were organized. We did exactly what we said we were going to do. We had very good communication. And I attribute a lot of that to Tim and I coming from corporate backgrounds. So that's just like kind of the level of expectation and communication that's expected of us when you're working a W-2 job. But when you go into this, other realm or this other world, there's a whole world of people out there that have never had that level of experience of corporately communicating to each other. And brokers appreciate that professionalism. So he was like, I made more money on this transaction per hour because he looks at all of his time on a per hour basis. He's like, I made $4,000 per hour on this deal because you guys did what you said you were going to do. You didn't come to me and waste my time. You made everything really easy and you took care of what you said you're going to do. One deal. And he said, all right, you guys are now in the top 4. He was like, if I ever get a deal, it goes to my top 4. and you guys are part of it now. And then we have just been consistently closing deal after deal after deal after deal. And there's multiple times where even the brokers, like, these sellers were the worst sellers that I've ever dealt with. And he's literally said, there's no other group that I would have brought this deal to. It would never have gotten done. And what do you think happens when you do something like that? You perform because you said you're going to buy this deal and you're going to close on it, and you do whatever's necessary to do it. The level of respect now that you get from the brokers is completely different, or the broker is completely different, because you did what you said you were going to do. And it's not hard to do what you say you're going to do, right? It's just how bad do you want to build that good reputation? Like, how important is that to you? And ultimately, in the real estate game, it should be everything to you. Your reputation is literally everything in this game.
Ultimately, it's just being aware, understanding the value to that. I love how you were saying that, because I did a video last week on that, which was 3 points, which let everybody in the market know what you're looking for. Be easy to deal with through that deal, and be a closer. Don't nickel and dime when you've got a deal. Do the deal.
Ooh, good point. That's something that Tim and I always pride ourselves on. Is when we make an offer, that is our offer. We don't play this best and final crap. And the brokers know it, because we tell him, this is our offer, and we're sticking by this offer. Don't kind of come back and squeeze me for more money or whatever. Like, if somebody else comes with a better offer, take it. Like, this is where the deal works for me. I know I can deliver on this deal at these terms. I know I feel comfortable with the numbers. And if we go through due diligence and our rehab budget is 20% over or 20% under or whatever, we're not going to go retrade for that insignificant amount of money. But if your rehab budget doubles because you found something that wasn't disclosed to the broker or even by the broker, like, that's a different conversation. Like, hey, you didn't tell us that these buildings are sliding down the hill and we got to go put pilings in, and now we got to add an extra $300,000 to our rehab budget. Like, that's a material increase. But if you misbudgeted on your interior renovations because you didn't make the right phone calls, or you haven't had enough deal experience to know what it's going to cost, then shame on you for not having better people in your team to have that conversation with first. But don't go back and retrade because you thought you were going to spend $12,000 a unit and it's really going to be $15,000 a unit. No, that's on you. And that was your poor underwriting, when you're going into this deal. So don't nickel and dime. Like, you got to figure out how to make it work at that point. I mean, you move some money around or change your budget or whatever, but ultimately, like, the numbers still have to work based on what you originally submitted.
The bar is low in a lot of areas in real estate. We've mentioned that before. I know.
That's funny. That was actually, like, when Tim and I were trying to get our first couple of deals done, I would look at what other people were producing, like they're offering memorandums and like the level of returns and everything. And I would literally talk to Tim. I'd be like, dude, the bar is so low. The bar is so low. Like, I swear, when you guys have your podcast with him, he'll say the same thing. We talked about it all the time, that the bar was low.
That's what Logan Rankin was preaching on the podcast about property management. How bad
the bar
the
is so
average
low.
apartment property management is. I think it was 40-something days is the average amount of time for a work order to be completed.
No
It's
way.
bad. Yeah, across the country.
Oh, that's pathetic.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you had something called a race car mastermind. I can't let this episode end without learning more about that.
Oh, dude. All right. So look, I'm a big believer in writing down your goals. It's literally on my desk all the time. My goals are literally right next to me every single day. And on here, I had host two in-person paid for events by October 31st, 2022. Well, I didn't do that successfully. We did one. But this had been on my mind since last year. I was like, I've been to some small mastermind rooms where there's like 15, 20 people max, right? And I always come out of those events with way more relationship capital and information than going to any of these big, large conferences. Now, they both have their place. Like, hell, I'm flying to Dallas tonight to go to a conference down there, right? So I still do big conferences, but then next week I'm going to a fishing trip with like 12 people. Where do you think I'm going to have better relationships come out of? That fishing trip, right? And it's significantly more money, but it's fine. It's whatever, right? At the end of the day. But I wanted to be that person that put people in the room together because I love it so much. Like, when we had started, so the event was called Race Cars and Real Estate, and we held it at the Porsche Driving Experience in Atlanta. So we did, Friday night, we all flew in, we had drinks and, went out to dinner, and it was a lot of networking and get to know everybody. And then on Saturday, we were from 8 a.m. till 12. We had breakfast catered there. And then, it was some networking in the beginning. And then we got up and Tim and I did a little spiel and kind of talked to some stuff. And then we had 3 people come and do like presentations and talk about real shit, like not generic crap. Like, how are you doing this? What are you doing wrong? And it's a very interactive environment. It's not a lecture. It's not a speech. I don't allow PowerPoints. Like, I want you to talk to me from the heart and from the hip. Like, show me your passion and talk to me about what you're really good at. That's why I invited you here to be a speaker, because I want you to influence everybody else in the room. And ultimately, I wanted to be that person that built this room, because I love seeing people come together and work together and win together. And I live a life of abundance, man. Like, I don't need any money. I don't need any money from the relationships that they're making or that the deals that they're doing or whatever. I don't care, but I do love the value that it brings to the community, because the people that value themselves to pay to be in that room are the people that you want to be doing business with in the first place, right? And it came together so beautifully, because we all came away. Even I came away from things from that event. Like, I got to change this, and this. I'm going to start looking at some things differently. Tim Vest and I were just like, dude, like after that event, like we're re-looking at a lot of our deals and, refining the business plan. We literally did our Facebook, live on it on Tuesday about refining the business plan, all from that Porsche event. And it was just, you come out of there so rejuvenated and energetic about what you're going to do in the future. And, especially now with like trying to set 2023 goals and stuff like that in the next couple of weeks. But, basically, so we did that from 8 till 12:30. And then we had, lunch catered and all that stuff. And we had a driver, onboarding or whatever. They kind of told us the rules and regulations and all that kind of stuff. And then we drove Porsches on the track. Like, they taught us how to do donuts. They taught us how to, we were launching them, and they were teaching us how to do the apexes and pulling all the G-forces. And, there was like an off-road track that they took you in the Porsche Cayennes, where they went up like a 78% grade on stock street tires. It was insane. It was crazy, actually. I got car sick while driving. I typically don't go in the passenger seat of a car because I get car sick in the car. Like, I can't even look at my phone in the car and I'll get sick. But I got sick in the driver's seat because it's the sensory overload of driving those race cars at like 100, 120 miles an hour around this track. And, the driving instructors like screaming at you, gas, 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 gas. And all you can see is this wall like 50 feet away, and you're still full throttle. And it's just such a sensory overload. And they truthfully, they did say they were like 1 in 5 people get sick doing these events because they're just not used to like being in a car that's spinning around. You're doing donuts, like you're doing defensive driving maneuvers, and you're racing on the track, and they're teaching you how to drift. And man, it was just incredible. And everyone that was there said that was hands down like the best event that they've ever been to, because it was so like adrenaline rushed, and it was fun, and it was exciting, and it was different. It wasn't, something that everybody else does. And I had that vision in my mind for over a year. And I was like, I need to do this before somebody else does it, because I want to be the pioneer of saying, hey, well, nobody else has done a race car event before, so I'm going to start doing those. And next year, I think we're going to do it in Vegas with like supercars.
Unbelievable. I have been watching it on social media, just checking it out, thought it was such a great idea. But the way you just described the race cars is one thing. You tell a great story. So I'm picturing myself in this Porsche, and I'm picturing you getting sick while you're driving, but also the event with your presenters. I'm picturing myself in there, that the way that you lay it out intentionally is super powerful. I love how you set up that event. That's amazing. Congratulations.
My thing with that was, I want to bring a ton of value to people. So we, invited people to come, and we paid for their tickets and all that kind of stuff, right? The goal of that event was not to make money. We didn't make any money. We lost money on the event, which is fine, because I wanted that. Like, that was an investment in myself that I loved. I would do it again in a second. But ultimately, what I wanted to do was bring people together to learn, to grow, and to network, and then go do something that's going to be a bucket list item. Go do something fun. Like, that's why we do what we do, is not to just sit behind this computer desk and analyze deals and run numbers all day long. It's like, I want to go do things. I want to experience life. And what better way to do it than with people that you can have honest and open conversations with, because you're on the same page in terms of being an entrepreneur in the same business, or like learning how to do things differently, and, talking about your problems and figuring out like, how can you be better? And then go do something so adrenaline rush where everyone comes off it. They're just like, vibrant. Everyone's so vibrant because they've never experienced anything like that before in their life. Me either. And it was perfect, man. I would do it. I'm going to do it again next year.
Stephen, he's got networking figured out. You're able to mix up that stimulation with what we do professionally. Now I know why you're going on that fishing trip next week, or whatever you said you're doing that. It's going to be a whole nother stimulation, but ultimately it's bonding, with people that you do deals with or raise money for your deals, all of that. One last thing that I had written down, because I talked to you, I don't know, what did we talked maybe a year and a half ago, and you had mentioned you started this Facebook group, and it increased to a good number, and it ties into you attracting money, attracting deals. Tell us a little bit about that Facebook group and what type of opportunities that presented for you.
Yeah, so that's really interesting, and thanks for bringing that up. So I started a Facebook group called, originally was Making Moves in Multifamily, because I'm a big fan of making moves and taking action. Like, one of my superpowers is fire, ready, aim. Like, I just take action and I figure out the rest of it along the way. Kind of how that Porsche event happened.
Stephen and I have no problem doing that.
Yeah, taking action is, a lot of people fall victim to not being able to take action. But that's not my strong. Like, my strong suit is, let's go do it. Like, I'll figure out the rest later. If it gets me, my brain works as, does this get me closer to my goal? Yes, do it. No, don't do it. Okay. So, like, it's not very difficult for me to take action on stuff. So I created the Facebook group. And every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, we do the Tim and Tim show, where we talk about what's going on in our business, what we're seeing in the market. We're talking about wins, we're talking about losses. We're just being vulnerable, right? We're showing people what it looks like to be us. What do the conversations look like between two high-level operators on a day-to-day basis? And we're talking about what we're paying attention to. We're talking about refining our business plans and revisiting our underwriting. We're living through what's going on in the market with the debt and the rents and the deal flow and everything. And it's just, ultimately what it does is it inspires people to join our calls because they want to be part of that type of circle, right? And we use StreamYard as our platform because it makes it an interactive environment. Again, just like we did the mastermind event, interactive, right? So people, they can watch the show and they can type on, the computer and ask questions. We'll bring the question up on the screen and we'll talk about it. And honestly, it makes for better conversation because people are engaged into the conversation as a whole. So we built the Facebook group. I started it in May 2021, and it's around 4,000 people right now. But from that, you have people that are your investors that pay attention. They want to learn how you think and like what you do in times of difficulty. And ultimately, you're just kind of showing people the inside of how you operate. And that's how they begin to know, like, and trust you. And once they know, like, and trust you, it makes it easier for them to reach out and talk about, hey, I got 50,000 or 100,000 or 250,000 or whatever, right? Or I got this deal I'm struggling with. Do you know anybody that can help me? Well, I can help you, right? You just open up that door for conversation by being vulnerable enough to make other people feel comfortable to reach out to you. It's a little counterintuitive, but like as soon as you bring down your wall, your facade, your vulnerability wall, as soon as your vulnerability wall is gone and you start showing people your underside, your underbelly, right? They're going to open up to you way faster. And you get to those meaningful conversations and you make progress with those conversations quicker because you're willing to be vulnerable and show people what you're not good at. Right. And that invites and just kind of makes you human at the end of the day. I mean, we all are. So there's a level of component there that of just being like anybody else. Right. When you're just like anybody else, like even I would feel intimidated talking to Grant Cardone. Right. But like, I hope that what I put out into the world is people feel comfortable enough in order to reach out to me. So from that Facebook group, what we've been able to do is just listen to what people are asking. And people have asked, hey, like, we've seen your growth and we've seen this and we've seen that, do you offer coaching? Because I'd really love to learn from you. Like, if I was going to be like anybody, I would want to be like you, Tim. Can you coach me on how to do that? Well, sure. So we just listened to what people wanted. And ultimately we started a coaching group, and we have a Discord channel that, like, is a paid access Discord channel. We do weekly deal reviews. That's my strong suit, is underwriting. So I review people's deals for them, and we structure the deal. I help them write up the LOI. I mean, I'm using my experience to protect them from doing a bad deal, right? If they're underwriting, the cap rate's too low, or the rehab's too low, or the rents are too high, or whatever, right? Like, that's where my value is. It's by protecting the people that are willing to be in this Discord group or in our coaching group, so that I can help them be successful, because it works for me. So we have the Discord channel, and we changed the name to the Making Moves Real Estate Community, because I didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves into just multifamily. Because we do like some self-storage stuff. We do, triple net retail. We have some mixed use properties, and we're trying to expand and grow and be different and do different things. And I realized that I don't know everything. So I've invited people into the Discord channel that are experts in those different fields. And I let them run that Discord channel. And so, hey, if you got questions about something you're interested in, short-term rentals or whatever, go post it in the Discord channel, because, the person that runs that channel, that's all they do is short-term rentals, right? So we wanted to make it more of a community that brings people together, where there's a wealth of knowledge and there's a wealth of information, where Tim and Tim are not the ones that know everything, but we have a really strong network of people that do know a lot of different things. So if we can bring everybody together and create that environment where people are interacting and helping each other, then everybody wins, right? And it's just, I want to be that facilitator that helps people win, because I believe in abundance at the end of the day.
Woo, Steven, what do you got to say about that?
So much value to be a part of that group as a new investor, to have someone to help you with the LOI and the underwriting. I had Bill by my side to help me. I felt very lucky to have that, but to have someone who's done it, and it's a paid group, but the value there, you can't put a price on that.
Do you know how much it is? $50 a month. That's it.
I was gonna put another.
If you don't get value at $50 a month, then you don't belong in real estate.
Yeah.
Tim, what are you doing?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow, we could go on and on. Tim, this has been fantastic. It really has. We appreciate you being on today. But they say you have to have 3 of something to make a collection. This is the Collecting Real Estate Podcast. So 3 questions for you to wrap this up. Number 1, what is the most important thing you've learned since collecting real estate?
The strength is in the pack. Absolutely. You don't know everything. And there's so many things that I don't know and that I don't really care to know, but other people specialize in those things. And the bigger you grow the network, the easier life becomes. And something that Tim Bratz had told me when I first quit my W-2 job was, when you go to these mastermind events, you're paying for the people not in the room. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? And I didn't get it until I needed something, and I was talking to somebody from that mastermind event, and he was like, actually, I don't know, but I do know who does know. And I had never met this person before. And going to these types of things continues to grow your network, and that's ultimately what's going to make you successful, is the strength of your network.
Love it, love it. Number 2, what are your 1 to 2 year personal goals? Something outside of business.
Yeah. So in the 1 year goal, would like to have a kid, getting in my young 30s now, and been working on that. So that's that's on the top of the priority list. This current year was a lot about focusing on my business growth and things like that. But next year is going to be more about, my personal health. Some of that kind of went to the wayside because I was working 12, 16, 18 hours a day. So now I'm trying to step back a little bit from the acquisitions and, refine the processes and figure out how I can make money from it. But more importantly, I'm going to be working on being more consistent with the gym. I started tracking my food to track macros and all that other kind of stuff to pay more attention on my health. And ultimately, those are the top 2 priorities for me right now is, focus on my health, get pregnant with my wife. And, we are going back to Hawaii in the end of June, but would like to make a trip out of the country sometime next year.
Amazing. Love that. How can we and the listeners assist you? How do we contact you?
The best way is on Facebook, honestly. Add me on Facebook or join the Making Moves Real Estate Community Facebook group. We do our Facebook Live every Tuesday. If you're interested, you could go to our website is mmimf.com, makingmovesinmultifamily.com. We have like our coaching programs there, or the Discord channel if you're interested in joining that. That's probably the best way to get in touch with me.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. Once again, we really appreciate you being on the show. Have a good day.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Steven. It's a pleasure hanging out with you guys, and look forward to let's do this again next year.
Definitely. Thanks, Tim.